You need to be praying for the next person who will be president. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Here's what I do know. Regardless of how it turns out, my God is able in spite of it all. If we're going to have an authentic Christianity, we need to realize that testing, no one likes testing, but testing causes triumph. You know, if I were to ask you, how many of you would like for the Lord to send a test into your life? I'm willing to bet no one's hand's going to go up in the air and go, ooh, me. I mean, I didn't even like tests when I was in school. I was terrible at tests. Any good? How many of you are good at taking tests? Let me just see your hands. God bless you. I heard a pastor one time say, he was talking about one of his children in his home, and the child said, you know, Dad, I went all the way through high school, and I ain't ever made a B the whole time going through high school. I made straight A's all the way through. Pastor looked at his kid and said, well, God bless you. He said, I ain't never made a B myself. Anyway, so hated test. Here's the deal. I want you to kind of understand, God does bring testing into our life. Listen, let me say this very clear to you so you understand something, okay? So God, the Bible's very clear, God will never tempt you beyond what you can stand. He'll never allow you to be tempted beyond what you can stand. God doesn't bring temptation. God will never allow you to be tempted beyond what you can stand. But listen to me, when it comes to test, you need to hear me about this. God will always test you beyond what you can stand. And I know some of you are like, what? Yeah, your test is going to be harder than you can handle. Some of you have been through the test. Some of you have been through the fires. Some of you have had difficulties in your life. And you're like, why would God allow me to be tested beyond what I can stand? Here's why. Because he's looking for you to look back to him and realize it's not beyond what he can stand. Trust in him. Trust in the Lord. So testing will cause, if you allow it, will cause triumph in your life. Here's why the Apostle Paul said it. He said, for I know, verse 19, that this will turn out for my deliverance. I want you to notice that word deliverance. I'll come back to it. He said, this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and the provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, according to my earnest expectation and hope that I will not be put to shame in anything, but that with all boldness, Christ will even now, as always, be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. Okay, I want you to notice some things that he just said here. He said, my deliverance. He said, I know it will turn out for my deliverance. The word deliverance there is actually the word, you can actually translate that word as the word salvation. It'll turn out for my salvation. But he is not talking about eternal salvation. A lot of times we think that Jesus is talking about eternal salvation. He's not talking about eternal salvation. What he's talking about here is that no matter, if you'll just pay attention to the very next verse, whether I live or whether I die, it'll turn out for my salvation. That God is able to save me regardless of whether I'm living or whether I die. So he says, and he said there are some key components to this salvation. He said the first component is the intercessory prayer of the saints. For I know that this will turn out for my salvation through your prayers. Listen to me, never diminish the idea of prayer. In a few weeks, we're going to pray. I hope that as we're spending time in prayer, that you're not spending all your time praying for you. I hope you'll take a long time to pray for other people. I hope you'll pray for your neighbors. I hope you'll pray for your family members. I hope that you'll pray for our leaders. I hope that you'll pray for our local leaders. I hope you'll pray for your mayor in this town or in the town that you live in. I hope you'll pray for your city councilmen. I hope that and by the way, not all of them are very godly. This is the way that it is in life. But it should not diminish us from praying for them. I hope that you'll pray for your staff at this church that will continue to give the Word of God unadulterated. I hope that you'll pray for our governor and for our representatives in the state of Texas, in the great nation, in the great republic of Texas. I hope you'll pray for them. And I hope you'll pray for our president. Very ungodly man, but he needs your prayers. Because there's something powerful in the intercessory prayers of the saints. And we should be praying for those who are around us, above us, and those who should be leading us. Are y'all with me on this? You need to be praying for the next person who will be president. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Here's what I do know. Regardless of how it turns out, my God is able in spite of it all. And so we need to be in prayer. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm calling us to a time of prayer and fasting, because it's our opportunity to bring the power source back into America again. Intercessory prayers of the saints. There's a second thing that Paul says that will turn out for his deliverance, and that is the provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. Have you ever thought about this? That salvation comes by God's provision. Salvation comes by God's resources. That God is able to save. Paul says there's two things that are keeping me going. Prayers of the saints and knowing the provision of Jesus. By the way, if you don't know this, one of the names of God is Jehovah Jireh. Jehovah being God and Jireh being my provider. That God is my provider. Listen, don't ever get caught in the trap of believing I provide for me. Listen, everything that I have because He has provided it for me. And I would just say this, the resources that I have, 100% of those resources come from Him. Someone says, well, Pastor, don't you work for it? Don't you take a paycheck? I sure do. And here's what you need to know. God gave me the health. He gave me the breath. He gave me the wisdom. He gave me the power. He gave me the strength. He gave me everything that I needed so that I was provided for. It was God who did this. And by the way, if you don't believe that, do you not know that God can snuff it out just like that? So it is God who is our provider. We need to understand that testing actually produces within us victory. And it doesn't matter if the victory comes while we're still alive, and it doesn't matter if the victory comes when we die. Either way, it's going to turn out pretty good.